guys, Ryder here to review the Kamen Ryuki Legend Henshin Belt Series V Buckle. So, this is the third wave of the Legend Henshin Belt Series that got started by the end of Saber, practically. But basically started because of the 50th anniversary of Kamen Rider, to which obviously this line of belts is just a series that is a series that just re-releases the main Rider belts in the regrettably new belt style they've been doing since 01. So obviously this, like I said, this is a part of the third wave, which was the V buckle and the Kabuto sector. Obviously the V buckle, as you can see here, actually comprises of both Ryuki and Knight, as you can actually switch between their decks, and it advertises here that it does come with 4 advent cards and such. So as you can see from here, the boxes for the Legend Henshin Belt series, I really do like them overall and such. They do have the Ryder symbol on the side, but obviously this one is actually both representing both Ryuki and Knight, and we do have a picture of Ryuki and Knight on the side. So on the left here we have Ryuki with the V buckle. Again, we get the Ryder symbol again. Just a continuation of the front. Bottom, just the warnings and cautions and such. As you can see from here, this is the US release from Premium Bandai US, as this was released here for the Narakiri world. This is most likely the last US release I will be obtaining for Kamen Rider. The back just basically tells you what it does. The top, again, just shows off the contents, and then, yeah, so Knight, I think, only has the one picture, but Ryuki's at least different on all sides. Oops. Again, contents, instructions, and such. I do like whenever they do the like, I know it's stereotypical, just doing a glass shatter, but I don't know, like, I think it works. So here we have the contents out of the box. We have the V buckle portion, the Advent deck for Ryuki, and plus the cover for Knight's Advent deck, the Advent cards, and the belt strap, to which, obviously, as I think I said before, the way the Legend Henshin Belt series belts go is that obviously they just utilize the standard buckle belt straps that have been established since 01. So, you know, we've had these gray ones for a while. You know, it's kind of unfortunate these don't really have a style anymore. And obviously, we will loop it, but we'll cover the V buckle first before we actually get to that. But the new thing with this, however, are the buckle stoppers, which are basically just bigger versions of what we typically get with Sentai buckles. It's just that obviously with this series they started providing these ones and such. I personally don't get why it needs to be 2. I guess unless you have an extender, but like, I don't know. I feel like it should just have the one. Anyways, here's the V buckle itself. It's pretty standard for the most part. Like, obviously, it's just the buckle portion. It's not like Kuga or Agito, where they actually do include a separate connector piece to actually at least mimic the side buckles, because, you know, the side buckles are always a separate piece. But honestly, this is actually pretty well done. Like, the silver paint is pretty sharp. The red plastic is, like, pretty neat. Or it's, you know, it's shiny, but, like, The red plastic here is kind of like, I don't know if it's technically like there's swirls, but I don't know if that's like purposeful or it's damaged in a way. And then obviously we have these side buttons right here. I'm not too sure if, I assume this is not based off of the CSM mold, just because obviously they had to downsize it, and because only this button exists as opposed to this button, because this was a button previously. Also, for anyone curious, the reset button is here. I keep forgetting to point that out. And obviously this will not light up and such. And we do have our blue paint right there and there. This is where the speaker will play. And the back is actually well done. It's kind of disrupted by the pull tab and the battery cover and such, unfortunately, but yeah. So basically, I think the ones that don't require batteries actually do have on and off switches. No. I don't know. This one in particular doesn't have an on and off switch, so we'll just pull it. And then we will slide these in like so. Obviously, this is the left. As you can see, I would obviously put it down, but I can't because it's going to start playing sounds. And then, as you can see, there are arrows here and such, and I really do like at least it's because it's been a while, I feel, that we've actually had buckles that actually do stop where they're supposed to. And then, obviously, this is where things get difficult, because then you have to push these in, make sure you don't hit anything. I almost hit Gotchard, but just slide these in and cover the loops like so, and now we have our V buckle, which again, it does a good job at like passing by. Obviously, if you really want it to be complete, then have the side buckle, but obviously the DX version never had that in the first place either. Like, obviously, like, I really do like, this still in a way does mirror the DX release, because obviously, the DX releases, the straps are attached, so it's just, you know, you're not really missing much, as long, like, at least we have this part here, just to mirror it and such, but, yeah. So here we have the Advent deck right here and such. Obviously, we have the Advent cards, to which we'll take a look at first. So obviously, we do have 4 Advent cards included, to which we have the Advent card and the Final Event cards for both Ryuki and Knight respectively. So obviously here we have the Advent Monster Drag Ryder, to which, you know, they're a nice reproduction of the cards. Obviously they don't have the punch outs and such, and they are, like, what's surprising about it, I kind of knew they were like glossy and such, but the backs are actually just flat, which is pretty interesting. Obviously we got Advent card, and then we got it mirrored and such. I don't actually have the Dragonite cards on me, because those are boxed away, so I can't do a comparison and such, but I also forgot to get the other cards I had, just to compare. Here we have the Final Event card for Ryuki, which I've always enjoyed the Final Event cards, even if they're the most simplistic. The backs are all the same. Here we have Darkwing. This one's always been interesting to me, ever since I've seen it. And then Final Event for Knight. So, obviously we have to look at those first because we have the Advent deck for the V-buckle and such. To which, I think, again, this is what I assume that is a new mold, just because it is, like, a lot smaller than I was anticipating it to be. Because, like, I'm pretty sure they are supposed to be bigger. But, I mean, it's, like, it's not too bad of a size. It's small, but it does what it needs to do. Obviously, Ryuki's is always pretty, like, significant and such. I always really liked how the Advent decks looked. And the back, you know, has the details it needs. And the originals always did have the hinges and such. I'll just say, like, I find this track kind of distracting because I feel like it's a bit too... I feel like it's a lot bigger than what it was supposed to be, but again, it's probably a new mold. Again, you fold it open to insert the cards as the Advent deck is spring-loaded and such to hold the cards down. And I didn't really realize that the cover obviously had holes to, like, basically keep itself in. The only issue is just obviously because of how this works, is that the cover isn't the greatest because it doesn't clip in. It only, like, it holds in here. But then, like, this is honestly, like, the worst. Because it just does that. So, obviously, to get this ready, you want to basically flip the entire arrangement backwards. And then, from apparently, you're also supposed to have it facing like this, which makes sense because of how they load it into the visors. You want to slide it in like so. And then I will say, obviously, to be more accurate, you want it to just be touching the surface and not, you can push it down, but obviously you're going to have that gap. So push it down like so, and then close it, and now you have a full Advent deck with cards. It's still going to do that and such. And then taking a look at Knight's Advent deck cover. I really appreciate they actually went through the effort of molding this in a different color. Which is, you know, just to make it accurate. And, like, it is an interesting way of including it. It is a cheaper means of doing it. But I kind of, like, obviously, because if we were to refer back to the original Legend Henshin series, V-Buckle, they were two separate decks. But obviously, to cut costs, they just made them all one. It's just that now you have to pull off the cover for Ryuki's deck and then clip on Knight's deck and such. To which this is achieved by these two grooves, or these two openings right there. And then you just want to simply clip them into like so, and now you have Knight's Advent deck. To which you can tell the difference in color, but I mean, it's not as distracting. And luckily, Knight's isn't as bad. I mean, obviously because it's boxed with Ryuki's, so it's, and this one's separate, so of course, like, the tightness is at least going to be there. But, like, you know, it's not that distracting in most settings, or, like, light settings, I guess, of the blue and the black. And then just simply clip this back in like so. So let's get the Advent belt. The V-buckle. Alright, so with the V-buckle, the first thing we can just do by itself is just pressing the button here like so. Which is the summoning sound, and that's all it does. Which obviously all we have to do is just slide the deck into the belt like so. And now we have transformed. To which I really like, again, Oh, not again. As you can tell, you can hear the clicking sound of sliding the deck, and we'll get into that as what we can do after is pull a card out, like so, to which I'll try to show the card. So as you can hear there, when you slide a card, it hits the button right here, to which then will do a sound in coordinating with the card, which is why you want the cards in the correct order. Then when we slide out the next card, so as you can see from there, the Legend Henshin belt series, this line, for the most part, when the belt does include finishers, they actually pull them straight from the CSM belts, which I think is cool. Just to, elevate them a bit and actually make them worthwhile. Because the Fives driver did that by adding the Crimson Smash. And I think this was the second belt to do that. And such. Which is why, especially when we pull this out, we have the deactivation. And that's why the transformation has been elevated to actually be more standardized and such. Not standardized, more like more closer to the show, because it's just the CSM sounds in a cheaper mean, which is cool. Now, obviously, as I'm not really describing, we are setting this up for night. However, clipping this in. However, to get this actually set in night mode, you need to hold down the red button, to which you get a dark wing sound. I apologize if I keep saying red button, even though it's the only soul button. Because speaking of that button, if you press that again, it's the summoning sound again, to which, obviously, when we slide in the deck, I really like that. And then it's the same thing, just like what we did with Ryuki. So Advent, and then Final Vent, and that is basically it. Because then if we decided to change it back to Ryuki's deck, and then just press it. As you can see, it's not the CSM where it would actually know which deck is what, because obviously it's just the one singular deck. Obviously that's switching it back to Ryuki. Yeah. So that is basically it for the V-buckle. It's pretty basic overall, but it's not that bad. However, I do want to get into some aspects. What happens to you or to slide this without a cover? Because luckily because of the cover. Oh, I'll say this, like, technically, despite how bad this cover is, luckily, if you do insert it correctly, because of these sections right here, it does actually hold it down, which does allow you to slide the card out. But obviously, like, you probably still need to hold the deck down just so then you make sure you hit the button and such. Like, I really do like that they've just been able to keep this feature of having the, having the sound of sliding the button and such. Just because that's kind of been a thing with this belt. It's just that now they made it so that it actually does sounds and such. But obviously, you obviously, of course, can hold other cards and such that aren't just these. So we brought in our traditional contenders. We brought in a Ride card, a Ride Chemi card, an Ultra Dimension card, and a photo card. So with photo cards, no. With I never put a Ride Chemi card in here, but this is a lot more. Yeah, you can tell it's actually a lot. It slides out a lot more. But because I don't think that's the case with Ultra Dimension cards. Yeah. I think it's just, again, it's probably because it's just the one card, so of course you can slow it down. But I think the most cards I was able to fit were 6, but again, for the sake of this, we're just going to put in these 3 cards, and technically this one's different because it's plastic. Well, this one is sleeved entirely, so it'll probably add thickness to it, but... So, again, it might shift around, but... And that one didn't even go through. Alright. But, like, honestly, do this at your own precaution, because, like, especially with stuff like this, it will obviously scratch it. As you can see, the oneness card is already dented because of how much times I put in the oneness buckle. And like plastic, obviously, it does get scratched up too. And these, again, are supposed to be... These cards are meant to slide. This is sleeved, so it's fine. But you can't... I don't even know if it's even worth trying to put these back in like this. Because it's... I want to say it's kind of a mess to do it like this. Because you don't... So I was going to say, you don't even have access to it properly, but... But again, that basically is kind of the functionality of this, which is, again, standard. But overall, what I think about this toy, I think it does what it needs to do. As I've already kind of said a lot. The V-Buckle, whenever it's re-released in these like more basic entries, like the more like basic like belt series, they never really fail to like keep the essential playability of it, because of the fact the original toy was very simple. The big thing about it was just its the amount of decks that were present and the cards, because the V-Book, all it did was the activation sound, transformation, and the card swiping. It only had 3 sounds to begin with, so there's not really much you can fail at. Well, yes, it's kind of it's kind of unfortunate that the activation sound is actually omitted, which I just realized. It still kept up. It still keeps the core playability of the V-Buckle from, I think at that point, 20 years of its existence. and elevated it by, updating, or by adding in the CSM, uh the sounds from the CSM into this. That's what I appreciate, at least. Obviously, someday, I'm waiting for a version 2. I'll probably get the CSM V buckle. I know the China's re-releasing it in October, but again, I'm gonna wait for a version 2 just to see if they will do stuff like Oja Survive, or like if they will actually update it to have things from Ryder Time Ryuki. But honestly, I think this is like a pretty like neat release and such. That, again, I got it from Premium Bandai US for 35, which is about it's about right for what it typically sells for. I think this is one of the entries that are kind of more difficult to get your hands on in a cheaper means, which is why I'm actually kind of fortunate that this did get released in the US, even though it's one of the last ones that's probably going to get released in the US. Because I really wished the last wave of Legend Henshin belts got a US release, because obviously I still want to get Hibikis. Because I feel like that's the only one that's actually kind of worthwhile to get. And maybe the Fives ones, but obviously you get the Bandai China releases, so those are kind of dwarfed. So, like, yeah. Obviously, also, like, if you're a fan of Dragon Knight 2, I think this is a pretty nice set. Obviously, it doesn't spin and such. And like like I said, I don't mind the cost cutting measures they had to do, just to at least still keep the core essential. Like the fact they still kept Knights, they still kept Knights deck, or we still have some form of Knights deck, is pretty cool. Because I think there was another version. No, there was the first version was with Oja's deck, and then the second version was just Ryuki Knight's deck. So I still like that they're still keeping that consistent. It's just whatever means they had to do just to keep this at a low cost. I feel like I don't really know what I'm talking about anymore. So that'll have to do with this review. This is Ryder, and I'll leave people.